So if we move on to temperature, reptiles, as I say, they're ectothermic. They rely on external sources of heat to maintain their body temperature. Temperature is absolutely critical. I can't emphasize it enough, really. It's critical for all biological processes. And an animal has to have the right temperature and be able to move within a variety of temperatures to control its own internal body temperature. And that's what we call the preferred optimal temperature zone, so providing a warm end and a cool end of your enclosure so the animal has a choice of where to go. And that affects medications, and it affects immune function and health overall. If you don't have the right temperature gradient for your species in question, then you're going to run into health problems. Heating equipment, there's a huge array on the market, from heat mats, which are good for providing background heat. They should probably be on the outside of the tank or on the side. I don't like to have them on the bottom of the tank because the animal can come in direct contact with them and get burnt if it's not on a thermostat. That's a heat mat that burns in a wooden vivarium just from overheating. Radiant spot lamps that give out light as well as heat are very important for diurnal basking species. So a lot of lizards that will bask in sunlight, they need the primary heat source to give out light as well, because that's what attracts them to it. They need to bask under the sun, basically. Ceramic heat lamps then don't give out any light, but they're good for kind of nighttime temperatures or nocturnal animals. So you need to be looking at the wild environment and looking at temperatures in certain seasons, the differences between day and night. Putting your heating equipment on thermostats is extremely important, because you can't control the temperature. If your house is warm one day or it overheats in the summer or it gets very cold in the winter, unless you have your heating equipment on a thermostat and under good control, your animal's going to be prone to a lot of fluctuations, and it's going to have health problems as a result. And buying, a cheap thermometer and just knowing what temperature your vivarium gets to at the extreme ends is extremely important, and it's something that a lot of people overlook. I ask people, what temperature are you keeping this reptile at? And they often look at me blankly and they don't know, and they just say, well, we were told to buy this bulb in this pet shop, so that's what we did. And it's not enough really to just say, right, he's got a 60-watt bulb. That doesn't mean anything. What you want to know is what temperature you're keeping it at. And just a note on safety of heating equipment, you need to protect from direct contact, as I said. Belly burns on snakes are very, very common where heat mats are used as a primary source, particularly when the heat mat is inside the enclosure. Animals need to escape from overheating, so I mentioned in the last slide, a heat mat should only cover the back kind of 30 to 50% of the tank to provide a background temperature. There needs to be a cold or cooler area to retire to escape overheating. Belly heat is a bit problematic when treating respiratory infections in snakes, because they're either going to be warm when they're in the vicinity of the heat mat very nearby, or else they're going to be cold, and those extremes of temperature don't help. So generally the ambient temperature of the air is something that we want to be measuring rather than putting our thermometer directly on the heat mat. We need to know what the ambient temperature in the vivarium is. And then there's some interesting evidence to say that chelonia, which are tortoises and turtles, really should not be heated from underneath, from belly heat, because it can cause maldigestion issues. There's some studies done that say with thermal burns in reptiles, a lot of it has to do with the size of the heat source relative to an animal size. So the most risky way of heating a large animal is with a very intense small heat source that focuses a direct kind of beam of heat. So you need to have larger heat sources for larger animals that spread the heat over a wider area, because reptiles have different thermoreceptors to us and they don't feel themselves burning, and you can get quite horrific injuries, like in this monitor lizard, if you provide the inappropriate heating equipment.